Matsumoto's articles kind of exploded on the scene in Japanese Buddhist study. They started presenting these papers about how Tathagata Garbha is not real Buddhism. And I got an invitation from Cambridge to a workshop with Carmen Blacker, and the theme was rethinking Japanese religion. And I thought, oh, here's a chance to, and I, spent the time going through Hakamai Matsumoto's work, and I gave the paper, and then I published the results in my article called Zen is Not Buddhism in quotes, but still people tell me, why do you say Zen is not Buddhism? And that led to a broader publication. Jamie and I decided to do a broader book, which became Pruning the Bodhi Tree. And
there's not much left on the Bodhi tree when the pruning is finished. Because, from their point of view, Buddhism is thoroughly infected with this heresy called Maha-Atman, or Dhatuvada, they called it. But the point was...
So the cover is by Frederick Frank, who's quite a famous artist. And he was very upset with the critical Buddhist ideas. So he kind of made this illustration of this denuded tree with only two, emptiness and pratityasamutpada is all that's left. But there's a moon in the background. And that's because of the famous Zen saying, of the finger pointing at the moon. You shouldn't get stuck with the finger. You have to focus on the moon of enlightenment that the finger points to. But we had a working title for the book based on this idea. And because Hakamaya is so polemical and he attacks people by name and he tells them, you're stupid to believe that. And it was unheard of in Japanese scholarship. So our working title was Promise Them the Moon, but Give Them the Finger. So,
because from their point of view, the finger, so the teachings and awakening, right? Like don't take the raft over to the other shore and then leave the raft behind. But their point was that the teachings are important. If the words point to the ground, that's where you're going to end up. So the teachings are extremely important. So yeah, promise them the moon. Give them the promise of awakening, but give them the finger, which fit kind of the humor. And then the other one was, I was saying earlier, so this caused a lot of problems. To me, it was very interesting. Because for me, their story, I kind of felt like before the book was finished, that I already knew what everybody's responses was going to be. If you're Nyingma, you're going to be like this. If you're Zen, you're going to be like this. If you're Kalupahana, you're going to be like that. And it kind of played out that way, which is an interesting comment on our ability to think critically and change our minds about stuff. But a very senior scholar, Stanley, we say names, right? You can edit. Stanley Weinstein at Yale, who was very respectful of the Japanese establishment that was being lambasted by Hakamaya, stood up at a conference, at an AAR conference, I forget where it was, and said, if critical Buddhism movement, if critical Buddhism is a movement, it's the kind of movement that should be flushed down the toilet. But that's kind of both of these stories kind of tell a little bit about the way it all kind of played out. People got upset about this. It was not just an academic argument. Bernard Faure called it a tempest in a teapot. And he was very dismissive of it all for his own reasons. But anyway, so it was interesting along all those ways.
But it's interesting how, like Bernard Faure has some very critical work on Japanese and Chinese Buddhism, and yet he was not very happy about critical Buddhism. On the other hand, people like geez, I'm getting old. Bob Sharf.
Bob Sharf, yeah.
Who was also an early critique of Japanese Buddhism, Zen and nationalism and such. He's been very positive about critical Buddhism, and I think he's well aware of how it's a repeat, in a sense, of many debates that go on through the whole history of East Asian Buddhism. It's not new in that sense. I think what Hakamai and Matsumoto are saying is you have to be careful with this concept of Buddha nature. It's not simply something that's there or that you're already enlightened. The idea that if you're already enlightened, you don't have to do anything anymore because everything is okay just as you are. You can't accept that uncritically. And I think this theme, I mean, it came out in the Japanese context, but it's been gotten a lot of attention and is still debated in Korea and Taiwan and China because it's recognized as an important question in the field.
I think that's why, if you look at the articles in the book, I don't know what the percentage is, but a lot of it is not about Japan. So people were talking about it, in very heavy-duty philological terms. The argument between Yamabe and Matsumoto, for example, that's carried out at a very sophisticated philological, textual, classical Buddhological kind of level. But people were talking about it, all throughout the Buddhist world. This has been historically, and I think today, remains a live issue for people. And so I think that's another reason for the resonance.